Sometimes you call it adversity. You're calling what you're going through in your life as adversity, but it's not adversity. It's really turbulence. It's something that just is unsettling to you, but it will pass. It's not going to stay around for a long time. It's just that it's unsettling to you. You don't necessarily like it, but everything you don't like is not necessarily adversity. There are some things that are unsettling to you, some things that you don't like, and they will be here today and they will be gone tomorrow. It's just that simple. And so, but what you make it adversity when you sit and you put all your attention and focus and concentration on that thing that will just pass like the wind. It's not adversity, it's turbulence. So we misjudge the duration of circumstances that are in our lives. Sometimes we're calling something adversity, it's just commotion. It's just noise that people are speaking, noise that people are saying. Like I said a few Sundays, let them gossip, let them lie. And after they finish gossip, after they finish lying, go about your business. It's not stopping you from living your life. If it's not stopping you from living your life, then keep on moving forward. It's not adversity. Because adversity, by definition, is a continued state or duration of misfortune. So sometimes it's the turbulence, sometimes it's commotion, and sometimes we talked about this, it's a convulsion. Now, I'm going to go over this briefly, but we mentioned the fact that you have to understand that our struggle is not against flesh and blood. That sometimes you are interacting with people, you are interacting in environments, and the Christ in you, people are resisting the Christ in you. They're not resisting you. They're resisting the presence that you are bringing into that environment. And so there will be a convulsion. There might be some resistance, but it's not adversity because it won't last that long, because the whatever spirits are in them, whatever spirits in the environment are resisting the spirit of Christ that's in you. And so if you don't get that, don't worry about it. Go back to YouTube. It's all there. So what I'm simply trying to say is that don't overreact to a situation, because it could be turbulence, it could be commotion, it could be convulsions. Now, the opposite is also true, because there are some situations in our lives that we think, oh, that will just pass, or that will just take care of itself, and it stays for longer. It moves in, it brings a bag, it gets too comfortable in our lives. Y'all missed a wonderful, shout out to my wife, y'all missed a wonderful children's moment this Sunday. It was so good, I'm going to put it on YouTube. I'm going to start putting children's moments on YouTube because it was that good, but all of them are good. But she talked about, let me tell you, let me preach on my wife's sermon, because that's what she did. Let me preach on her sermon. Let me talk about her sermon for a little bit. She preached on how oftentimes sin is like a misspelled word. It was so good. It was so good. Let me talk about this for a moment. Let me talk about this for a moment. And she wrote black on the piece of paper, and she said, this is how we spell black. And then she put 2 A's in black, and then she tried to cover black up, and then she tried to say, well, justify that this is the way people in different parts of the world spell black. And she said, it's just like sin. Sometimes sin, we know it's, we pretend like it's not. Just like with sin, we cover it up, but we know it's there. Just like sin, we make all these justifications on why it's there. Oh, y'all got to hear that sermon. Y'all got to hear that sermon. But what I'm trying to simply tell you is that sometimes there are things in our lives that we think, oh, if we're not going to deal with them, we're not going to work with them, and we think, oh, that it will just work itself. But it doesn't. It moves in. It stays with us, and that's just as dangerous as the other things. So you have to be careful about underestimating circumstance in your life and overestimating circumstance in your life. That's all we talked about. We have to change how we understand adversity. So you with me? Okay, so that's just review. If you don't understand that, I'm sorry, but you should have been here 2 weeks ago. Okay, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. You can hear it. You can hear it on YouTube. Now, recycle adversity. So that's how we understand adversity. Now we talked about how do you recycle adversity. This is what I want to build on. We said that the first thing is you have to understand is that all adversity can be recycled into possibility. No matter what you're going through, I don't care what it is. I don't have to know what it is. All of your adversity, that continued state of discomfort, of misfortune, can be recycled into something that can be for your good. Whatever you're going through, I don't care what it is, it can be recycled into possibility, something that is possibly good for your future. Now, what do I mean by that? So we said marked. Let's read this. Let's read this line by line. Go for it. Go. Those in the sanctuary, read. Keep on going. Hmm. Let me just share one thought with you from that passage. Why does Jesus need this person to have some type of belief? Why can't Jesus, and this is not uncommon, why does Jesus always interrogate folks before he heals them and ask them these questions and go? I mean, why can't you just do what I want you to do, Jesus? Just heal them, just help me, just whatever you need, just do it. Why with all the 20 questions? Listen to this. What is Jesus doing here? He's saying, I want to know if you can imagine yourself being healed. I want to know if you have any capacity to imagine your family being better than it is right now. I want to know if you have the capacity to imagine your life being possibly better than it is right now in this moment. Can you imagine it? I need you to be able to imagine the possibilities of what could be. Why? This is so powerful. Why is that important? We talked about this. Can you imagine that it's possible for your adversity to be transformed? Do you have the ability to do that? That's the first step in any type of transformation. It's your ability to see something different. Don't care what it is. We're going to talk about your assignment in a moment. So this is what Jesus was saying, is that I want to see if you have any capacity to imagine your life being different. Now, why is it so important? Let's go a little bit further. We talked about this possibility. What is possible in your life is only limited by your imagination. Your imagination. What is possible to happen with whatever you're going through right now is limited by your imagination, not by God's power. Let me go a little bit further. We talked about this last week. All of us must live with the creations of our minds and hearts, so we might as well make them beautiful. We talked about this last week. It's so important to make sure that you are always filling yourself with beautiful thoughts, beautiful ideas, beautiful feelings, because that will be the template. That will be the basis for what you can see. All of us must live with the creations of our minds and hearts, so we might as well make them beautiful. Why are you putting so much ugliness in you? Why are you allowing yourself to ingest that day in and day out? If it does, it will stifle your imagination. The reason why, if the only thing you can see in the world is ugliness, that means you let too much ugliness inside of you. If the only thing you can see in the world is violence, that means you are looking at or thinking about too many violent things. What we see, what we notice, what we pay attention to is directly connected to our thoughts, our images, our ideas that we allow inside of us and to grow inside of us. Now, this is the baby step. Everything I told you I've already talked about last week. That was just a review. This is the baby step. Don't blink. Now, imagination is limited by exposure. If you can't imagine things, then that means your exposure is very limited. Your what is possible is only limited by your imagination, but your imagination is limited by your exposure. Let me talk about this. This is the baby step. This is the baby step. Let me tell you a quote. It is a great tragedy when a child's imagination begins to live in the prison of the parent's exposure. You can go home right now, just quote that quote right now. It is a great tragedy when a child's imagination begins to live in the prison of the parent's exposure. Let me break that down. For this is very important to understand the relationship between imagination and exposure. How is it connected? A child's imagination, by definition, is expansive. It starts out as expansive. It is expansive from the very beginning. Now, what happens is that, but if the child is only exposed to dysfunctional relationships, if the child is only exposed to abusive and combative environments, expansive imagination coming into the world, but the child is only exposed to dysfunction, the child is only exposed to abusive and combative environments, the child is only exposed to limited career options. The child is only exposed to limited learning paths. The child is only exposed to limited life choices. The child is only exposed to limited dietary options. What happens? The child grows up and they enter their parents' prison, and then they begin to choose from the options that's available in prison. They go into prison and they say, well, I guess this is what life is. This is what my options are. However big the cell is, whatever's in the cell, that's what I have to choose from. Possibility is limited by imagination. Imagination is limited by exposure. Not to say parents can't expose their children to good things. I'm not saying that. But a child should never be limited to a parent's exposure. Every parent should want their child to be exposed to more things than they are exposed to. Now, let me go a little bit further. This is my proposition. You cannot imagine your adversity being transformed into your good. If you can't imagine that, I want you to do an exercise in a moment. If you can't imagine your adversity being transformed into good, then you need some more divine exposure in your life. That's the problem. The problem is not you need more stuff. The problem is not you need God to do something else for you. The problem first is you need more divine exposure. If you can't imagine, so this is the exercise right now. I want all of us to do this. Whatever you're going through, I'm gonna give you 15 seconds. If you take notes, I want you to write it down. If you don't take notes, you can close your eyes and think about it. Okay? I want you to think about or write down whatever the top adversity in your life, just one. Write that down right now. If you're online, you can write that down. If you want to share with the congregation, you can put it in the chat box. Whatever floats your boat. But I want you to pay attention or note whatever the top adversity you have in your life right now that you're going through. I'm not playing. I want you to think about it. For those in the sanctuary, raise your hand if you got it. Okay, most of you all. For those in online, just let me know that you have it, whatever that thing is. You're like, Pastor, this ain't going to take long. I know it right off the top of my head. That's okay. I want to make sure you have it. Good. Okay. Now, this is the exercise. Do you have, and I'm talking about specific, can you imagine, can you envision, can you consider that thing which you're thinking about right now being something else, transforming into something else? Good. That's good. That's what I want to hear. Okay, look. So some people in the sanctuary are saying not really. It's a struggle. Some people shaking their head. So some of you may be able to do it. Some of you can't. But I'm more interested in the ones that can't do it. So if you're feeling this block right now, you have this thing. You have this thing right now that it's adversity, it's continued misfortune, a conditional state in your life, and you're saying, I can't imagine any possible way where this can be transformed into something for my good. I can't see it. That's the people I want to talk to right now. I can't see it. I can't imagine it. I can't even consider it. Here's what you do. Here's what you do. You got your assignment now. Let me give you one more quote. Then I'm going to give you your tips. Listen to this. Miracles often need a dress rehearsal in the imagination before they can be performed. Y'all, you, if you really understood what that is, you'll be running out the sanctuary right now. Miracles often need a dress rehearsal in the imagination before they can be performed. What if Jesus was practicing the miracle with the man in his mind before he performed the miracle? Just what if Jesus was rehearsing the miracle in the man's mind and heart before he performed it? All right, I'm done. Let me give you this. See, as parents, we like to expose our children, and we should. We want to expand our children's horizons. We want to expose. So that's called expansive exposure. Whatever I was exposed to, some good things. I don't want my child to be exposed to bad things, but the good things, I want my child to have that and more. So I want to make sure that, wherever I went, they went to, but I want them to go to more places and do more things or whatever like that. I want them to have expansive experiences. That's good. But expansive experiences and divine exposure are not the same thing. There's expansive exposure, there's divine exposure. So let me tell you, both of them are good, but we need both. So let me give you an example. Listening to lectures, TED Talks, exposing yourself to podcasts. This is an example. This is expansive. It expands your ideas, your horizons, what you think, what you can consider. That's good. That's called expansive exposure. Wonderful, wonderful. But that's not necessarily divine exposure. Divine exposure is listening to silence. Now, this is the first tip. For those of you who said, listen, you know what? That adversity, I can't see any way possible that can be transformed. This is your assignment for the week. Spend 10 minutes listening to silence every single day. That's your first assignment. That's an example of divine exposure. And the wonderful thing about this, like I say, doubt everything I tell you, because I don't tell you anything that I haven't done myself. I'm not telling you what I've heard. I'm telling you what I know. Listen to silence, divine exposure. So The expansive exposure. So as some of you know that, I've been giving away. I think there's 2 more paintings left, 3 more paintings left. 2 are downstairs, and I've been giving away paintings that I've been working on literally over the last 4 or 5, maybe 6, 7 years. And Julius got a painting. Julius over there. Oh, he's over there. Okay, Julius got a painting, and I gave Julius his painting, and he said, "What does it mean?" I said, "It means silent sound." So Julius, if you're listening, if you look, the passage that your painting comes from is 1 Kings 19:12. But in that passage, as we all know, it says on the only part in the scripture that talks about the still small voice. And Elijah listened, heeded to the still small voice. That literally can be translated as silent sound. Literally, it can be translated as silent. And Elijah listened to silent sound, because silence does have a sound. You won't notice it until you try to listen to it. So if you are having problems, you need more divine exposure. So number one, you lectures and ideas are great, but also listen to silence. Expansive exposure. You want to experience new foods. You want to experience new scents and sights and new encounters. That's wonderful. Travel places, do things, learn different languages. Experiences are great, wonderful. It expanded me and helped me greatly. Expansive exposure. That's wonderful. But you also want divine exposure, experiencing the void of fasting, experiencing the void of denying yourself of something. That is divine exposure. And it doesn't sound fun, but I promise you, whatever adversity you're going through, if you can encounter that divine exposure, it will increase your imagination. It will increase what you believe is possible with the adversity that you're dealing with. I'm not telling you what I heard, I'm telling you what I know. I'm telling you what I know. I preach on what I know. I don't preach on what I heard. Exposure. Those are just 2 examples. But what you want to do is you want to expose yourself to a limitless God. The only limits that you have in life are the limits you place on yourself. The only limits that you have in life that you place on yourself. We serve a limitless God. And let me be very clear, God can do whatever God wants when God wants. Period. Period. And if you don't spend time reminding your soul of that, you will start to live in prisons that you have created and other people have created for you. You have to remind your soul of that. And I'm not talking about know it up here. I'm talking about know it here. Are you with me? Are you still with me? Is this too much? Are you still with me online? Okay. Let me tell you a parable. First day, this mentor was with these group of kids. They were at-risk kids. And the first day the mentor met with the group, the mentor said, listen, he handed each kid in this small group a film canister. And these kids, they're digital kids. They don't know anything about, analog cameras or anything like that. And they were like, what is this? He says it's a film canister and has film on it, has photos on it. And not just does it have photos on it, but he said they contain images of what your life could be. On these canisters, he handed each one a canister. And so they said, well, how are we supposed to see them? How are we supposed to figure this out? What are we supposed to do? And he said, well, you have to learn how to develop the film. That's the only way that you're going to be able to see the images of what your life could be. So a few of them said, they weren't curious at all. They were like, I don't really care what's on the camera. I don't really care what's on the film. And they just threw it away. They just kept on going with their life. But a second one, some tried, and they said, you know what? I Googled it. How do you develop film and all this other stuff? It was just too much effort, so I just left it alone. I just put it aside. But there was one youth that returned, and he said, listen, they returned to the group again. He said, listen, I did it. I figured it out. And I saw all the images that you gave me of what my life could be. And so even though the other kids didn't figure it out, they were like, well, they were kind of curious about how did you do this? I mean, you didn't have an experience with this. And so he said, listen, I learned many things about how to develop film, but the one thing that really stuck with me, the one thing that I really took away from this whole exercise is this, that the most important thing for me was you will never see the images if you don't expose them to the right amount of light. That's what I got out of it. That I never was able to see the images of what my life could be if I didn't expose them to the right amount of light. That's it. That's what it comes down to. What is possible is only limited by your imagination. What your imagination can conceive is only limited by your exposure. So this is it. I'm done. This is the last slide. Every day, expose yourself to the light of Christ. This is the problem with some people. Some people, the only light of Christ you get is on Sunday morning when you feel like showing up. I didn't say every Sunday. When you feel like showing up. I went to church and it ain't do nothing. Expose yourself to the light of Christ every day. Every day, even when you don't feel like it. Everybody, and that's the question you have to ask. When you're in front of a person, when you're doing an activity, when you're in a place, is there any light here? Is there any light in this conversation? Is there any light in this activity? Is there any light in this environment? And if there's not, why are you still there? Why are you still talking? Why are you still interacting? Or why aren't you bringing the light to that place? Those are the only two options. If there's no light, you need to leave. If there's no light, you need to bring some light. But you should not be in any environment, in any relationship, in any context where there is not some light of Christ there. Exposure to the light of Christ expands your imagination. If or no, why am I, you got to answer some things. Why are you exposing yourself to so much junk? Why? How is that benefiting you? The only thing exposing yourself to junk will do is shrink your imagination. That's the only thing it will do. Shrink what you believe is possible. Maybe you need to bring the light of Christ, the light of the gospel, the presence of Christ to the place that you're in. And if you don't have the strength to bring it there, then you need to get the hell out of whatever place you're in. I can't say anything stronger than that. You need to leave. You need to go. Just that simple. We all deal with adversity. We all have things that we're struggling with. We all have things, but I'm telling you, God can transform it. But it starts with you. It doesn't start with God. What about that? All right, I'll see you next week.